All right. Hello, everyone. Let's get started. Before we get started, I want to remind you, you will have a quiz today, right? I think the professor has already posted the quiz on Blackboard. Please find a time slot to finish the quiz when you are available today. All right. Okay, so let's continue to learn the loops. Okay. Please run the first script to identify your host name, username, and kernel information. Today we are going to learn the count controlled repetition. It means we need to learn the for loop. Okay. And please input your name, your R number, and the date. Okay. Because in lab 6 we learned how to write like sequence. In lab 7 we learned how to write the conditional statement. In last lab, in lab 8 we learned the internal controlled repetition. We use a while loop, right? And here we use the count controlled repetition, means we initialize the counter and set the counter under a limit. And after that, if the condition is satisfied, then we continue the loops, or we will exit after the loop. And count controlled repetition is also control definite repetition, because the number of the repetition is known before the loop begin executing. All right, so that's the biggest difference, because in the if we want to use the while loop, in most cases we don't know how many times in advance about the loops, right? That's why it's called indefinite repetition. But in today's examples, they are all definite repetitions. Okay, so count controlled repetition will exit after running a certain number of times. The count is kept in a variable called index or a counter, right? Count controlled repetition requires control variable, initial value of the control variable, and increment or decrement by which the control variable is modified each iteration before the loop condition that tests for the final values of the control variable. It's very important. The last one is very important, because I think for the first three, they are easy to write, but for the last one, you need to think twice. What is the final value? Okay. We can use both for or while loops, but for in the combination with range function is more common. So let's see some concrete examples. First one, structured for loop. We have already seen the for loop already. Executes a block of code repeatedly until the condition for document is no longer true, for something iterable, and then print out something is a syntax. We also use the colon and indentation. So please remember, when you are using the if, while, and for, you need to use a colon and indentation. Okay, so first one, let's try with the complicated example. So make a list of Walter, Jesse, Gus, and Hank. So if you already seen the Breaking Bad series, you know they are all character names. Write a loop that prints all elements of a list. Then Breaking Bad list the name, right? And then for elements, for names, and then you can use the for all strings. All strings means that one variable in this list, and print out it will. So After that, it will print it out by the order of this list. As you see, order means the first element, second element, third element, and the fourth element. Okay, so anything. So actually, for example, here you can just write all strings, then all string. After that, it works because it's just a variable names. Okay, right. And next one, range. The range function to create an iterable. So range begin and increment create an iterable string at a value of begin in steps defined by increment, ending at the end. Begin and increment. So in this way, we need to determine which is the first element, first number, and then what is the end number, right? So the same example, but we use the this list. Okay, so for I means the index, right? Start from 0 and end before 4, and the increment would be 1. So print out. So first, in the first loop, we will print out the BB0. It means the first element. Then do the increment by 1. Second one will be BB1, second element, and until it is smaller than 4. So the last one would be 3. BB3 would be Hank, right? And after that, it will not work. So here, please change the numbers. Okay, change the numbers and run it again. So you can create a new one, or you can just revise in this cell. For example, you can change to 3. Then it will only print out the first 3, right? But you can also change to 5. So then you see it will print out the first 4 elements of this list, but the last one, you will have an error. The error would be index error, list the index out of range. So next time you have this error, list index out of range, you need to make sure the end value is correct. Okay. All right, so please revise the end value on your own notebook and show me. Perhaps you want to, maybe you can revise it from 4 to 3, then it works, but it only print out the first 3 elements, but you can also revise it to 5, then you will have an error. But please change the numbers and see what happens. Okay. All right, so any questions so far? All right, next one. Next example is about how to print out the odd numbers. Write a loop to print out odd numbers between 0 to 10. So it starts from 1, x from the range, right? Range from 1, the end is 10, and 2 means the increment by 2, right? So the first one would be 1, then the second loop, it would be 1 plus 2 is 3, okay? Print 1, 3, 5, 6, do it again. All right, so it's about the odd number. And if you want to print out the even number, you can use, for example, here, you can use in this way, even number, you can change from 0, right? 0 and then 0 to 8, right? So it's about the even number. Okay, so very similar, but the only difference is start index or the end index. You can also change the end index. Okay, so it's about the increment, all about the increment. You can also use the -1 to do the decrement. Okay. Yeah, so it's for the for loop. Any questions so far? Okay, so next one will be nested repetition. So loops within loops. Here's some poem. Yeah, so so you can write several, you can use for for loops inside the for loops or some while loops inside the for loops. Okay, but please make sure to use some keywords like continue and break to control the loops. So for example, here is some to use a break keyword to exit out of loop. Sometimes you want to exit the loop when a certain condition different from the counting condition is bad. Right? So the counting condition is using using in this line, right? So using at the beginning of this for statement, but if some other certain conditions, you can use the you can write inside the loop, right? Perhaps you are looping through a list that want exit, you will find the first element in the list and match some condition, right? So and then it is an example. So let's try it. J is 0 for I is range from 0 to 5, and then J increment is would be 2, right? And print out I and J. And if J is 6, break. Actually, when I is 3, then J is 6, right? So let's try it. As you see, I is 0, J is 2, I is 1, J is 4, I is 2, J is 6. Then break. Break means there's no more iterations, right? Because when we write 4 iterations here, we expected it has 5 iterations, 5 loops, right? 0 to 5, right? But because we use the break keyword, it will exit out of the loop when this condition is satisfied. So that's why here there's only 3 conditions, 3 loops. Next one is about J7 break. Because J is the number J, they are all even numbers. So J7 is odd numbers. So this condition is never satisfied. So the loops will not be breaked or broken or exited. Okay, so let's write I0, I0 to 4, and then J is 10. So there are 5 loops. It means this condition is never satisfied in this loop, okay? It's about how to use the break keyword, okay? As you see here, in the first case, the for loop only executes 3 times before the condition J6 is true and the loop is executed. Next one is never matters because J is never been odd number, okay? So next one is what you can use for and loop while loop. Okay, so and one more example is about here cosine in the loop, right? Actually, here in import math, here means I'm not sure you have already learned it. Not so it means you can import another packages. So, for example, math is another package. There are many useful function in the math package. You don't need to write it by yourself, but you can use it. How to use it, you can use this way. The package name dot the function name and use the function, okay? And actually in the next lab, in lab 10, we will learn what is the functions and how to write your own functions, okay? So for example here, we want to compute the cosine functions. And see, you can write first one print of cosines here, cosines, and then x and cosine x, and yeah, the format here, right? And after that, for I from 0 to 100, but multiply 0.001. So it means from 0, it will from 0 to, I think it's not 0.1. I think it's wrong here. Between 0 to 0.1, okay? But the steps will be 0.001, okay? So because the end value would be 99, and actually it's 0.099, okay? and print out here is the format, right? The format, if you remember, the format X means it will keep the first 3 digits after the decimal point. That's why here is the 0.001, 0.010, and then have like 2 spaces and this symbol, and then print out the like the 4 digits of the decimal point of this number. Use this number to compute the cosine similarity, cosine function, right? Or there are 1, the result. Okay, so actually it should be 101. So if you want, the end value would be 0.1, but it that so as you see, the last one will be 0.1, but it's not very important. So depends on you. You can revise it or not. It doesn't matter. But when you write your own codes, please make sure to have the correct start value and end value. Okay. It's about the cosines in the loop, how to compute the cosines. And next one would be I think is the last example. So any questions so far? Okay, the last one is another example. We write a Python script to take the real input value of float for X and returns Y value according to the real rules below. Y is X times X and X plus 2. So actually, if you remember, the exercise of lab 8, then you will see it's related, right? So yeah, actually, it's the answer to the exercise of lab 8, if you remember. But in this example, in this exercise, you are using the while loop, right? But in lab 9, in this example, you are using the for loop, right? That's the only difference. Okay. So let's see it. So first one, you can input something. You can input the float number, for example, 0. Then it is 0 because the first one, right? And or 0.6, 0.5. And next one maybe 1. 1 is 1 and 6, 8, right? No, not 8. Okay, it should be 2.5. Doesn't matter, right? So please make sure to do the typecasting, right? Typecasting to use the float number because the input will returns only string values, right? And next one with you can set it. You can use the for loop to input more things, right? From 0 to 6. Okay. For example, here you can write the X from 0 to 6 and not actually it's from 0 to 5. And then if X is greater than or equal to 0 and smaller than 1, then Y is X, and have this format, right? And the second one, else if, else. That's right. So you see from 0 to 6 to 5, okay? But there's a little bit different. So in let me try to tell you. Week 4. Okay, so here is the result. So for this exercise, for exercise of lab 8, I expect you to get this one from 0 to 6. So the last one would be 6. But for lab 9, because the professor set the 6 as the end index, so the last one would be 5. So it's a difference. So if you want to learn from here, please make sure to have the correct final values, correct end values. Okay. For example, here, if you revise it to 7, it should be the same output, 0 to 6, okay? But yeah, so it's about this example. So 4 means before the decimal point, we want to have 4 digits, but you see here is only 5. Right? That's why there are 3 more spaces before 5, then 3 more spaces, and then only 1 digit. That's why here is 4 digits to format this X. All right. Yeah, it's about the table. And next one. Here, please make sure, I think you need to use a pip install pre-table first. Please run it, all right? Please run this one. Let me copy. Before you run next cell, please copy this one and run it to install something. Because I have already installed this table, it's not necessary for me, but you need to install this pretty table package, okay? And next one, please run it. And then you see it's there's a beautiful table here, but it's not very so beautiful. Yeah, yeah. So here is how to use it, define empty table, and how to add some rows. Yeah. So for now, maybe you are not sure how to use a function, because in next lab we will learn how to use this function. So please just run it, and you don't need to understand every line of the code, because it's not today's lab. Yeah. So any questions? So any other errors or for this last cell? Please make sure to install the pretty table package before you run the cell. All right. Okay, so the last example is about the continuous element. Because in lab 8 we have already learned continue, right? It will skip the block of the code after it's executed for that, only that iteration. So today we use it again in 4 loops, right? Range 0 to 5, and J is 2, and if J is 6, continue, right? You see the continue. And if you want to compare, I will show you how to compare that. Sorry. Copy, C, and right, but revise it from break to break. And then compare, right? So here you see when J is 6, it will skip this message. But when it is a break, then it will end. So that's the difference between the break and the continue. So very, very important. Okay. All right. That's it's a lab class. Here's some loops document you can read. Okay. And the exercise for today's class is choose for a while. That means you need to know the difference between for and while. So 1,000 people has asked to be enlisted to take the first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. You are asked to write a loop allows everyone to meet the requirement to take the shot. What kind of a loop will you use? A for loop or while loop? Explain the logic behind your choice briefly. So please answer your you don't need to write the programs or codes. You only need to answer. You will choose a for loop or a while loop and state your reasons. Okay, and please make sure to use the markdown or raw. I suggest you to use the markdown, not the code. Okay, because you are not writing the code, you are writing some text. So please use the markdown tab. All right. Then please answer this question. Yeah, so that's exercise for today. Yeah, that's all I want to share today. You can use this time after this class to finish your quiz, okay? Because I think there are 20 minutes. Yeah. All right, so if you don't have any other questions, please feel free to leave the meeting. And please make sure to submit this work by the end of next Monday, and see you on next Monday. Thank you, guys. I'll answer the question and don't write the code. Right, you don't need to write because you cannot write the codes. Right? Because you only need to know the 100 people, the requirements. So what is the requirements you don't know? So you cannot write the code. So only answer the question. Yeah, for a while. Okay. All right, I will stop here and see you on next Monday.